Nelson Mandela on the day when he would have turned 100. Arabile.
Yeah, well, the Ahmed Kathrada Foundation has also paid homage to Nelson Mandela, a close friend of the man affectionately known as Kathy. Neeshan Bolton from the foundation joins us as we delve further into the legacy of Madiba as well. Neeshan, thank you so much for the time this evening. I suppose let's start off with just your message to South Africans as we commemorate a day such as this.
I think we can be proud of having had somebody like Nelson Mandela being part of this country, part of its liberation struggle, but also with what he has left us as a foundation on which to build. That's what we need to be celebrating, because that's really what he and his generation created, was a foundation and a host of opportunities to rebuild a country according to our own wishes and aspirations.
Yeah. At the same time, we've seen that the questions of his legacy are certainly rearing their head at the same time. Do you believe we've reached parts of his legacy? How far are we away from achieving the most part of it, if we can call it that?
I think very, very far away from it. As long as we still have children falling down pit latrines,
yeah,
is an indicator of how much we still have to go. But I'm not underplaying the magnitude of the task of the mess that was inherited just pre-1994. And if anything, I think that South Africans don't really understand what was inherited by Mandela when his government took over. The fact that you had 18 education departments, you had millions of kids who were not in school. And today you have near universal enrollment into primary school, with a higher dropout rate, obviously, as you move on, which is indicative of the challenge. But the work started by Madiba, the constitutional framework, the legislative framework, the positivity that he gave over to the country during his term of office is what we need to be drawing on from. The fact that we squandered time and we squandered opportunities is not Madiba's fault.
So can we say that he helped us kickstart things and we were meant to take the mantle on, and we haven't done that?
I would absolutely 100% agree with that. It's really those who came after Madiba who didn't build on a strong foundation,
yeah,
who didn't continue on a path that he had in fact outlined, who deviated from it in many ways.
Yeah. And
I think we are paying the price for that today.
Many people looked to the ANC as a source of inspiration, a source of leadership, a sense of hope. Continuing in looking at just that the ANC in itself, has it continued to lead the country the same way Madiba did?
No, and I don't think that it could have, because our politics has become contested, and I think that is a good thing, that no political party can assume to be the dominant party in our politics today.
Sure. Are there principles then that you feel that not just the ANC but the country has forsaken in an attempt then to, in a quest for more than just emancipation from apartheid?
I think there are principles, there are values, there are modes of doing things which have changed fundamentally. And you would have seen the new president starting on a very basic thing, that things must start on time. Now, that was something that Madiba was very, very firm on. Punctuality was a key part of his entire demeanor and all that he was. Integrity defined who he was and that generation in a very fundamental and core way. That is missing from our body politic today. Accountability, him going to court, taken there by Louis Late, saying that he's not above the legal proceedings, has fallen by the wayside in a huge way, and has been very glaring. Donating a third of his salary to the Children's Fund, indicating that there was no aspiration for wealth. And I think people were shocked when, after his death, looking at just the size of his estate was nowhere near what people would have expected. Meaning that he didn't use his term of office to accumulate wealth as many others have done. So it's really all of those, and I think fundamental to his being was putting people first in everything that he did, even when things might have gone wrong, but it was the intention to in fact improve the lives of people. So Madiba starts off by saying children must have access to clinics, when the health department was not ready to implement that, but he forced it through and changed the system for the benefit of people. What has happened in the last 10 years or so was that the system was changed to benefit a few for very corrupt and narrow practices.
Yeah, I suppose the big question then, and you made note of the punctuality that Cyril Ramaphosa has tried to infuse into the current, department as well, and clearly that would help journalists a lot. They've been ones clearly complaining about that. But question we've asked across the evening, and I'll pose it to you in its current form: would Dr. Madiba be part of the ANC today?
I think he would have. I think that generation, including Uncle Kathy, were very, very clear that the ANC was their lifelong home. And if I understood Madiba to be as Kathrada was his dying wish to be buried having the ANC flag draped over it. Not for what it currently stands for, but for what it has stood for historically, and really carrying the hopes and aspirations of people in this country towards a better future. And the ANC, for that generation, was the vehicle towards achieving a better future. And they gave everything that they had for that organization. So I don't think that if they had been alive today, I think they would have been proud members. They would still have fought their battles within it in an attempt to change it. But I think they would have recognized that civil society itself has an important role to play in keeping the checks and balances in place.
In saying all of this, though, we've seen changes happen in politics. A lot of parties have split from the ANC, creating others. And these are all members who had vehemently stood for what the ANC stands for, perhaps not necessarily what it stands for today, but seemingly what it stood for over time. Do you not think that he would have settled on that and said, perhaps it is time for a new movement to have then added to South Africa's hopes of moving forward?
Not the Mandela or the Kathrada that I knew, and I think I understand. I don't think they would have done that. I think they would have fought even doubly hard to keep the organization intact and to steer it in the right direction, as I think the current president is trying to do.
Yeah.
And they would have been extremely proud to have had him as the president, and would have put everything behind his efforts to turn the party and the country around.
Can we achieve the legacy then of Madiba? And what is missing, perhaps, shall we say, to fully achieving Madiba's legacy?
I think that the world has changed, and we must take that into account. There's a new global dynamic at play. There's a rise of fascism across the world today.
Yeah.
So that legacy, I think, is important in terms of his own efforts to combat colonialism, to combat the rise of fascism in the 1940s and so forth. And that legacy has to be continued today. I think there's a component of his legacy which is really about people being the agents of their own change, which is something that has to be strengthened and strengthened fundamentally in this country, so that people don't only wait for political parties and government to do things, but create the mechanisms to hold those in public office and in private office accountable for all that they do right and for all that they do wrong. It's really the notion of people's power, which I think is something that we need to go back to and link that to the legacy of Madiba, because that's what his generation was about.
Yeah.
That's what the Freedom Charter is about. That is what the Constitution is about, is ensuring that people are the agents of their own change and have the wherewithal to work towards that change and to hold those in office accountable for whatever they need to be held accountable for. And if we do that, I think we can ensure that the resources of this country are directed towards the most essential needs and priorities. And where it can't be, we would find ways of ensuring that collaboration deals with the issues that the state and others can't handle.
Leadership becomes a big question. Arguably, some would say that we've had some sort of leadership void over the last few years. Do we have the right leadership to move us forward?
What I like is that I don't think leadership is centered in one area or locality or institution. I think leadership is dispersed across this country in the most magnificent ways. What is lacking is the usage of the collective leadership abilities of this country to steer it towards the common issues that I think all leadership needs to be focused on. So if the collective wisdom of this country were tomorrow brought together to address unemployment or education, I'm sure we would be able to do that. It requires a government, it requires political institutions to be able to work in ways which are different, beyond their own membership, beyond their own national executives. Then I think that this country has the wherewithal.
Neeshan Bolton, thank you so much for your time this evening. Of course, unpacking things from the perspective of the Ahmed Kathrada Foundation. That's a look at that for now. We'll continue to unpack, of course, the centenary celebration of Nelson Mandela's birth as well. We'll be back right after this.
Hey, amakhazi asibulele since kusilele sifathi imbawula la kuyabanda.